it's every now and then, since I tell everybody, since I had my first child, which is a daughter, it's completely broken me. Like, I can't talk about anything emotional without losing it. So I blame her for that. But hey, it's real. It's real emotion, and so.
Well,
anyway.
I'm Tim Garland, and this is the Trail Connection Podcast. Exploring, learning, and connecting through love for the outdoors. Talking everything from hiking, camping, to just plain living. This is the Trail Connection Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Trail Connection Podcast. This week my guest is Cody of Hike the Good Hike. And Jesse is a guy who's been really advocating for mental health over the past few years. Did an AT thru-hike back in 2015, and ever since then has been really trying to create a movement and awareness for mental health and how nature can benefit that. He's got some exciting things coming up in the next few months, and I was lucky enough to connect with him on social media, and he jumped out as someone that I really wanted to bring on the show and talk to for a few minutes to just bring awareness and highlight that mental health is a real thing and a real struggle for a lot of people, and nature is the best medicine, or some really great medicine for that. So without further ado, here's Jesse. Hey Jesse, how's it going, man?
Good, Tim. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm really happy that we could connect and I could have you on the show this week. I've been following your account for a little while now, and I find it very inspiring. It's kind of focused around the mental health and benefiting from the outdoors. And that's near and dear to my heart. So I definitely want to talk to another advocate for that and get a different perspective, because I think yours is probably a little bit different than my angle that I've been going for. So first thing I wanted to throw out here is what qualifies as a good hike for you?
Wow, man. I mean, that's a good first question. You got it right away, right off the bat.
Yeah.
What qualifies for a good hike? Honestly, man, it's not about where I'm hiking or the distance that I'm hiking or, the journey that I'm taking. It can be anywhere from a day hike out here in Santa Fe to, when I was back home in Cambridge, Massachusetts, kind of going out to Lincoln Woods where Thoreau did all his hiking years and years and years ago. If I can get out there for a couple hours and process some things that are on my mind and come out of that hike, with some resolve, some understanding of like what I was trying to tackle, then that's a good hike. But also, man, even when you're taking on a hike, if you have to really kind of tackle some difficult things and maybe you don't have some resolve, but at least you're facing those things, as scary as they can be. Just the fact that you're facing those things dead on, that's a good hike as well. So, it's not really about where I'm going, what I'm doing, the distance and such. It's just about kind of taking on each of those steps and processing while you're taking those steps forward.
Yeah, no, that's a great explanation. I find the same thing. I haven't done any long distance hiking. I've definitely want to, just not in a position of life where I can do a thru hike, but long section hikes is kind of where I'm at right now. And that's kind of the same definition that I have, even if it's just a little walk in the woods behind the house, or it's a section hike on the AT, or, when I get a chance to get out west here in the next few months and do some hikes out there. It's just focusing on nature and seeing what it can benefit me and how I can clear my mind, clear my head, and just focus on the world around me and what's going on, and kind of declutter a little bit. It's nice and quiet out there, and it's a good way to clear your head. And if I can go into the woods with a heavy heart and walk out with a clear mind, that's a good hike for me. So I like that definition. That's good, man.
There you go,
That's
brother.
Good. So I've done a little bit of research on kind of what you've been up to. I saw that you did an AT thru hike back in 2015. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Of course, man. I
Okay,
mean,
what
like that defines me. So,
Yeah. So what pushed you to the AT, and what made you decide to do that trek?
oh well, what pushed me to the AT was, geez, probably roughly 5, 6 months prior. Like I knew nothing about hiking. I was a city guy, man. Spent most of my time in the Boston area, and a little bit of time in New York City, and I was in restaurant management, bar management. So, before I took on the AT, I had no clear understanding of what wilderness hiking or any of that stuff was. For me, I was just in a really bad, dark place. I was struggling with my own mental health, and just having far too many thoughts about taking my own life. And these thoughts obviously were really scary to me. I mean, there were just far too many close counters where I truly thought it through. And, to be in that place, obviously is difficult. But I had a lot of love around me, still do, a lot of good friends, my family. I have a really big family that we're really close knit. And I was able to have kind of a flash, an awakening that, if I took my own life, I was going to let a lot of people down. I was going to hurt a lot of people. And I couldn't deal with that. I couldn't face that devastation that I could put on so many people. So, I made a decision that I wanted to figure out how to live, and to do so with purpose. I wanted to make sure if I was going to keep myself around, man, that there was something that I had to do to really say to myself, life is worth living. And I got lucky, like not only like did that love hit me, but as I started trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and I started making decisions that were just as terrifying, I knew I had to get out of this career of restaurant management because it wasn't good. It wasn't good for my mental health, and it was feeding into my insecurities and allowing me to do things as far as be a real narcissist and take advantage of staff and just all the things that were piling up on me. So when I was thinking this through and making this decision of what I was going to do next in life, Robert Redford had made an announcement that he was making Bill Bryson's book, A Walk into the Woods, into a movie. And that was a book that I had read in my early 20s. A good friend of mine had given to me. So that kind of lit a light bulb in me, not to hike, but just to go pick the book back up and give it a read, because I did remember that I enjoyed that book. So I did so. And as soon as I started reading that book, it wasn't too soon after that I made this decision. I need a long walk, man. And as crazy as it sounded, because I had no experience, one, I needed a long walk, and two, I figured to myself that if I am having such dark thoughts about making some bad decisions for myself, maybe going out and trying to conquer 2,200 miles is not as daunting as it seems compared to what I was going through. So I made a decision. I'm gonna focus, and I'm gonna study all I can on the Appalachian Trail and research and talk to people that have done it. And as I was doing that, I was getting more excited. And here I was at a place in my life where I hadn't really felt a whole lot of excitement about myself and my journey. But this was triggering that. And before you knew it, man, I was all in, all on board. And I picked the date being March 15th of 2015, and I got myself to Springer Mountain, and I started walking, and that's how I got to trail.
That's awesome. That's a really great story, and I just got to say, man, I'm so glad that you didn't make that other decision years ago, because there's so much good that comes from when you choose to pursue life, and you can choose to make an impact. And I mean, I don't know you. I don't know you very well at all. I'm looking forward to this conversation and get to know you a little bit more, but I respect that a lot. I've got a lot of empathy for what you've got going on. So
Thank you.
I'm thankful. Yeah, I appreciate that.
I thank you for those words, man. That means a lot to me as well. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and mental health is kind of a thing. It's a little bit taboo. Most people aren't really interested in talking about it, and it hits home for me. My wife is going through some stuff right now, and so it's very real. I can't sit here and say that I understand, but I definitely can empathize to what's going on. And so any kind of awareness or any kind of spotlight that I can bring to that, I'm happy to do it, because I think that it's important. I've seen her in some pretty dark places too. So, it means a lot. So anyway, we can keep going here. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. It's just
oh man, hey,
home,
listen, brother. I mean, like, I have these conversations so often now. And myself, I get very emotional when I tell my own story. But I have a lot of conversations with people that are going through difficult things.
yeah.
And I get emotional when I hear them. But
Yeah.
the beauty of it is, and you keep using a word that I just love, man, empathy, 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 empathy. And as two guys sitting here talking, that's not a conversation most guys have, right?
No, not at all.
Right. So,
Yeah.
let the emotions flow. I'm all about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of a good segue into another question I wanted to ask you is, what about the trail brings you empathy? What about these hikes instills that in you?
Yeah. So, I talk about this often, but I see the trail, any trail that I walk in, the wilderness, it's Mother Nature, right? And like, I am a firm believer that Mother Nature had been watching me and kind of knew at some point I was going to need help. And when I made that decision not to take my own life, I honestly feel like the universe and Mother Nature together said, okay, let's go get him, and let's bring him out into the wilderness, and let's start hailing this guy. So I look at it all almost as a female presence in my life, who she came in and she said, I'm not just going to hand you this, I'm going to make you work for it, but I'm going to promise you, if you work for it, you're going to come out of this the man you've always meant to be. I talk about narcissism because I was a narcissist. I was very much so a narcissist in the way that you could think, I guess the way to put it is to think what you don't want to see in a man, and certainly treatment in women that you date. This hurt me even when I was behaving like that. I didn't want to be this way, but I didn't know how to change. I just more so found myself kind of letting those walls close in instead of seeking help. So when I started hiking, and I just started feeling this overwhelming presence of a woman trying to help me, it made me really say, man, look, this is all about making sure that you show empathy for all people, but you kind of gonna have to pay this woman back for what she's giving you. And that's truly how I feel about the presence and being out in wilderness and nature, is that by doing what I'm doing now, and being open and honest and telling my story, which isn't always easy, it's my way of saying two things. Thank you for what you've given me, Mother Nature and universe. And two, in a way, for me to say sorry for some of my actions, or a lot of my actions in the past. This is, I think, the best way for me to show anybody that I treated poorly, I treated wrong. I'm taking steps every day to be the best human I can be. And now, with that word, once again, I'm driven off of empathy, to the point I'm just started school to be a life coach. And my whole focus is really to try to work with men that are battling narcissistic behavior, but want to change, and they just don't know how to. Like, that's my goal, is just show dudes, man, we can be better, man. Like, we can be better. So that's really, truly what nature's given me, man. It's just this complete, overwhelming feeling of empathy, and how to share it with the rest of the world.
That's awesome. And, it's very admirable task you have at hand, to try to help other men and other guys that are dealing with the same stuff. A lot of us are real proud, and we're too proud to admit that we're screwed up. And we all need some help. So that's great, man. Good luck with that. I hope that you're able to touch a lot of people with that. So
I think so.
So talking about things that kind of draw you to the trail. I was kicking around some different thoughts whenever I was preparing for this, and something that really was glaring to me, and it was kind of something that came out of left field, but hit me right between the eyes. It's such a cool thing that like a trail like the AT, it has this draw. It has this natural pull that pulls people to it to try to find something. Either, a lot of people that go on this trail are lost. To be frank, they're trying to find themselves. They're trying to find clarity. They're trying to find, balance with their life, mental health, you name it. People are drawn to it. And, I had that same draw several years ago, but it wasn't for, I wasn't in the position that you were in, but I was in a position where I was overwhelmed, and I was trying to find balance. I had dove into a career and completely engulfed myself in this one job, trying to achieve a status. And, it came back to bite me a little bit. And I had a kind of a reality check that, hey, man, I'm putting all my eggs in one basket, and this isn't the right basket. And so, I started pushing things out, pushing things away. And I had this draw to go do a section hike to clear my head, to find balance. And so that I use the Appalachian Trail for selfish reasons, to kind of get out and get away from everybody and clear my own mind, clear my own head. And you and I kind of, you went to that route for completely different reasons, and probably way more serious reasons. But, we both walked away from that with getting what we needed. It was like, it's a good prescription, and I think that is such an awesome thing that, a trail like that, not just the AT, there's trails like that all over the country and all over the world. But I just think that nature itself has this draw, has this pull to cleanse us and to heal us. And that hit me the other day when we were talking about this. I mean, because we had totally different perspectives on why we did it, but we both walked away from it better. And so, I kind of want to talk about that for a second, get your opinion on it. What you think about it?
Sure. I mean, there's layers to that, right? I mean, the first being pretty obvious is that peaceful, man. I mean, it is a place that you can go where it is very quiet. And when it's that quiet, it gives you a place to like get into your own head and have conversations, right? So for me, it's like, prior to hiking, those conversations I was having with myself, my surroundings were always chaotic, right? I'm a city guy, man. Like, I'm running bars, man. I'm a diehard New England sports fan. Like, it's like, everything's like, like, it is like you're trying to face some things, or maybe you're not even trying to face them, but they're there. They're always kind of in your head yelling at you, but your surroundings are chaotic. Whereas when you hit trail and you get out to nature, man, it's just nature that you hear, and it's a peaceful, beautiful sound. And so you're able to then once again conquer these voices in your head, but instead of letting the chaos, dictate how you're going to have that conversation, you kind of have some peace that allows you to face them and take time. You're walking, right? Like you're out there all day going into the early evening, and instead of letting them win, you kind of negotiate with them, man. Like you start making deals. I always say the voices don't go away, man. They're not gone. Like, but you kind of know how to like put them in their place a bit now. I always really truly say that, like, I even think the voices that they were affected by the chaos. So when you bring the voices out into nature, they're almost in awe. Like, they're like, oh, wait a minute. As dark and as angry as we want to be, man, like where you have us right now is a tremendous place. So there's that. And it's like, and it kind of goes into the second point of what I'm talking about is the solitude of it all. And again, the peace and the solitude, it is just a stage for you to truly start facing yourself. And while you're doing that, you're giving yourself a little bit of a challenge by hiking. So, everybody feels good. I love these conversations that I have with people sometimes who reach out to me and they say, I went out for a 2-mile walk today and I'm so proud of myself. They're hiking the good hike, right? Like, and it's so they just did something that they felt accomplished. Like they hadn't done it often. And now they went out and they said, I'm going to go walk 2 miles. It's impossible not to feel good about yourself when you achieve something, especially when it's like personal goals, right? Like to get out and do 2 miles. go swimming. I always say, like, hiking doesn't actually have to be hiking. Like, it just has to be something, that's kind of active and getting your body moving and preferably outdoors so you can breathe in some of that fresh air and listen to the birds and listen to the winds in the trees. It's just, I just find it to be almost impossible to not put yourself in a better frame of mind when you make that your surroundings. Like, people say, do you like to hike in the rain? I love hiking in the rain. The sounds and the smell of wet moss in the pond. Like, again, it's just, it feeds you right. It's like eating well, man. You know what I mean? It's like eating fruits and vegetables. It's the same thing. So when you put yourself out there, you're setting yourself up for success when it comes to your mental health. That's why you see it growing. That's why you see it becoming so much of a larger thing in our country with wilderness therapy and such, is because people understand the connection and how good it is for you. So no brainer. When I read A Walk in the Woods for a second time and listened to Bill Bryson's stories, you could feel it. You know what I mean? You were inspired by it. In the same sense, I'm trying to do the same thing, right? I'm just trying to say to people, go outside. I guarantee it. Just get out for a little bit. If you have a park near you, go out there, man. Like, and then get back to me and tell me you didn't have a great experience. I challenge you, because it's just no way that they can't.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. For me, I'm a man of faith. I believe in God, and I'm a Christian, and I find a lot of connection to God when I'm out in nature as well. And for me, it's, you get out to a mountainscape, you get out to this magnificent view, or you see these magnificent trees that you're out there walking around. To me, I feel close to him because he created both of us right there. And so for me, that's a good way for me to connect to my God. And so I get that benefit, from going outside as well. But going back to your point about just like goal setting, that AT hike, the first AT section hike that I did, prior to that, deciding I was going to do it, I was a quitter. I was one of these guys with big plans, big aspirations, and like very little follow through, to where, I'd lay it all out, this is how it's going to go. It's going to be great. And then when it came down to putting in the work, it was just like, this is tougher than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, maybe I'll move on, kind of thing. This was one of those things that I wasn't going to let that happen. I wanted to do a part of the AT, and I had zero experience backpacking, zero experience on the AT, but I was going to set a goal and I was going to accomplish it. And for me, that was life-changing, just to set a tangible goal and do it. And so your advice to others about, just getting out and doing it, hiking is a great way to start with small, tangible goals, because you can walk a quarter mile, you can walk a half a mile, you can walk 3 miles. You start small and kind of get used to the area and get all the benefit without all of the pain, and you can kind of work your way into it. And so there's a lot of folks who like bite out a huge apple that are just like, I'm going to go hike the thru-hike on the AT with zero experience and zero prep and all that kind of stuff. And that's probably not the wisest decision from a safety perspective, but there's better ways to kind of work your way into it and to prepare yourself, and you can still get the benefits of hiking. But obviously jumping into a large goal like that is going to be a little bit harder to accomplish. But I 100% agree with what you're saying, man. Encouraging people to get out and just challenging them to try to walk away from nature without any kind of benefit or any kind of personal gain from it. Because I've had several episodes where I've talked to people about my bad experiences and things that didn't go well, but I have this drive and this draw to nature, like I've been talking about, that like, it doesn't matter if it's bad, because it's still an experience. It's still a lesson learned. It doesn't matter if it's uncomfortable or cold or wet or whatever. I learn something from it each time I go. And so if you want to learn and you want to grow, you keep going. And for me, that's a good hike.
Yeah, I mean,
So
what's life without lessons, right?
yeah, absolutely.
You need to experience things that are challenging and daunting and make you question yourself, because
Yeah,
that's life, man. Like that's like everything you just said. There's a lot of things there that are similar between you and I, as far as quitting. Like I became
hmm
a quitter myself at an early age. I was a really successful runner through high school. I got a full scholarship to Providence College for cross country track and field. I flunked out of school less than a year later, because I started partying. I started doing the college thing, but I wasn't disciplined enough to balance doing that but making sure that I was studying and still training. So when I flunked out, it was just kind of a domino effect of saying to myself, I don't even want to try things anymore. I want to find the easiest things that I can do because I'm
yeah,
not good with challenge. And so in the same
hmm
sense that you're talking, like hiking the Appalachian Trail was the first time that I took on a challenge and said, I can do this, and it's a good point to make. I don't tell everybody, hey, you should quit your job and go hike the Appalachian Trail. You really gotta be in a dark place to have an understanding that you need something like that. So I always make sure, like, I'm not telling people to do that. What I'm telling people to do is, if for whatever reason you want to try hiking, yeah, let's baby step it first and make sure you know what you're doing and get
yeah,
used to it. Even though I
yeah,
had never done it before, I really, like, it was 4 or 5 months of really trying to get an understanding. Once I made the decision, I was going up to New Hampshire, the White Mountains, and hiking
yeah,
up Maine and hiking and just trying to get an understanding of what I was getting myself into. So it wasn't like I was
right,
like, okay, I'm going to hike the Appalachian Trail. And then, a week later I went and jumped on the trail. Like I
yeah,
made sure I put myself in the best position to be successful, whether it was
yeah,
getting a week or the whole thing. Luckily it was the whole thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. What's one of the biggest takeaways that you brought away from that experience and coming off the trail? What's something that's probably your biggest lesson learned from that experience?
That I was meant to live, that I was meant to be alive, that I was meant to make sure that I saw my life through. And I was given something on that trail that basically I didn't have a complete understanding of what I wanted to do. But it's the first time I ever said hike the good hike was, just a few weeks into the AT. I actually had like a small video that I put on Facebook. And at the end, I just said, all right, everybody, I'm going to keep going, but hike the good hike. When I came off that hike, I knew that hiking was going to be a massive part of my life moving forward. But I also knew that I had to do something with it that could leave its mark on the planet as well, right? What I consider my calling. And that was turning it into this, message / mantra, and moving forward with it to use it as a journey and a tool. And specifically my story to say, we all have a reason to live, man. And sometimes it's really, really difficult to figure out what that is. But, if we're lucky enough to be put on this planet, there's a reason behind that. And I came out of that understanding, that I'm supposed to be here, and I'm supposed to start screaming loud from mountaintops, hike the good hike, and to tell people what that's all about. So, now I don't quit, and there's a lot of, I wouldn't say failure in the work that I'm doing, but there are roadblocks, there are mountains in front of me, there are things that don't pan out, but instead of just shying away and quitting because it's too hard or I'm frustrated, that I say, okay, keep moving forward, man. It's going to make sense at some point. It's going to start panning out at some point. It'll evolve into what it's supposed to evolve into. And that's really cool, man. I really, like, I can look back on the last 5 years now and think about all the things that I thought I wanted to do with Hike the Good Hike and how all that's changed. But progress is cool, no matter how small it is.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And that's something that I've learned too with this podcast over the last couple of years, is just kind of letting it go where it wants to go, and having kind of a direction, but just kind of going organically. And it's got me to a point I'm really happy with. So I 100% agree.
Yeah, man.
That's
I
good.
mean, when you think about it, reinventing yourself you can't do it overnight, right? So I almost like,
Yeah.
I remember when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do before hiking, but I knew I wanted to live. I was starting to look. I was like, well, maybe I can go back to school and do 4 years of college, And I was like, man, that's going to be a lot of work. But I didn't end up doing that, obviously. But in a sense, what I have been doing for the last 4 or 5 years, in a way, is school. Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life and how I want to build Hike the Good Hike. And I'm actually in school to be a life coach. So to me, it was like, to think that if you're going to reinvent your whole entire life, that you can do it in a day, a week, a month, it's crazy. So you got to be patient and have understandings that's going to take some time and work. So that's kind of how I feel about the last few years. I've been in school, building it all.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep.
Street smarts, getting that life experience. That's good. That's good. Well, I definitely want to give you a platform to talk a little bit about Hike the Good Hike. So if you want to take a couple minutes and just share with my audience what it's all about, and maybe how we've kind of talked some about how it got started, but if there's some key points you really want to emphasize, then go ahead, take this time to do it.
I mean, as again, just kind of saying that it's a mantra, a movement is probably a great way to put it. I've seen it as a movement now because I'm just getting a lot of great responses from people all around the world. It's wild to hear from people from all around the world, Australia, Europe, South America, Canada. I've heard from people from all over. So people are listening. And so my goal, ultimately, and it's something that I'm absolutely working towards. I won't put the details out there right away because I'm a little bit superstitious. Sometimes you should not talk about things until everything's in place. But I am starting a 1,300-mile hike, the last 1,300 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail this July. And I'm using those 1,300 miles to help raise money for a program here in the United States that focuses on wilderness therapy with youth and young adults. And that's kind of what I want to do moving forward with all my hiking. I've got a lot of hiking that I still want to do over the next 3-4 years. And I'd like to use all those steps that I take to raise funds and bring awareness to all types of programs and organizations and nonprofits that focus on getting people out into wilderness. So in a sense, the work is being put in to become a charitable foundation. And I've got a lot of help, a lot of good people that are on board that are guiding me in that direction to do things the right way. What I hope in the big picture of it is that more people would like to hike the Good Hike and do the same thing, raise money, especially people who have actually come through those kind of programs, want to do something to give back. They can hike under Hike the Good Hike, and just kind of grow what we're doing and keep doing things to bring awareness in and to help these programs get people to look and help fund them so they can do more with people that are struggling. So that's really what I want to do. That's my ultimate goal with Hike the Good Hike. And, and again, going to school as a life coach, it fits pretty well together because that way I'm just using my tools and the things that I understand about life now, every way I can just to give back. I've been given life, man. All I really want to do is turn around and pass the torch, and just say, listen, man, we're lucky to be a human being, man. Let's try to make the best of it and find what's right within ourselves that we can use moving forward to be happier and be more productive and just have an understanding what your purpose is.
Yeah, no, that's great, man. And it just, it's really impacting me. I have to say, like, it's really impacting me, kind of hitting me right in the face with the stark contrast between you and I when it comes to why we hike. Because for me, like I said, it's been selfish. It's kind of been something to recenter, refocus myself. To bring me clarity. And from what it sounds like, it seems like your focus has shifted from that to others, to how you can help them and benefit them. And that's admirable and much respect. I mean, I think that's a great cause, something that I definitely can back, for sure.
Thank you,
And
brother.
I'll be excited to kind of see how your program develops and how the movement gets going. I mean, you've got about 10,000 followers or something like that so far on Instagram.
Yeah, I just got over that couple months ago, I think, which was pretty cool. Gives me the ability to do a lot of things on there, and you know, continue to find ways to get a larger audience. So that's
Yeah.
great. You know, social media is a funny thing for me. You know, like, you know, it's a valuable tool, but I'm also trying to tell people to put it away for a while and get outside and you know, turn it all
It's a
off.
necessary evil.
Yeah.
It's a necessary evil because I'm the same way. You know, encouraging people to go outside and disconnect. And if I'm telling them to do that, I'm telling them to turn off my turn off my page. Don't don't listen to my podcast. You know, get out and just listen to nature. You know, which is fine because you know at the end of the day, if that's what it takes to get somebody to disconnect from all the distraction and put away all the noise, then I did my job. So yeah, it's all about just encouraging people to get outside and seek the benefit of the world around us because it's beautiful and it's healing. So I'm on board with that.
Yeah. Yeah. The good thing is, I mean, again, like the next couple months, there'll, you know, I'll be putting some stuff out to the world about what I'm doing again with the hike coming up in July, but also there's two different pieces that I've been writing that I've been working really hard on with my editor writing coach. And I'm just trying to blast it out all around the same time. Hopefully one, if not both those pieces will be picked up by some publication for, sorry, for what am I lost my train of thought there for a second. To be published, basically, we're trying to get some, we're going to try to get them out to get published, which would really go well with making an announcement with what I'm doing with this 1,300-mile hike. So, you know, soon enough, I'll be blasting stuff out on my social media and my website that'll give more specific information on the upcoming things with Hike's a Good Hike.
Okay, well, good. Well, I'll definitely keep an eye out for that, and I'm happy to help however I can spread the word. I'll start using your hashtag, throwing it on there.
Thanks, man.
Because it's a good brand. You know, it's a good brand. It's a good message, and I think that the more that we can branch out and build this network of support and just encouragement, you know, break the stigma of the social media. You know, I mentioned that it's kind of a necessary evil. It's a pretty dark place, you know, there for a lot of people, and unfortunately, you know, I think that it's really benefiting a lot of people negatively. It's a good tool, but it just like anything, you know, it can be abused, and I think we're kind of to that point where there's just a lot of nasty things out there that are hurting people, and you know, I'm thankful that my kids aren't old enough yet, and we've kind of kept them disconnected as much as we can to where they're not seeing you know, the negative impacts on that. But you know, you mentioned the youth is going to be part of your target audience, and I think that that's absolutely the right market. You know, our young people are really getting hit hard. So
right. Yeah. You know, I look at it this way. Obvious, you know, stating the obvious here, but the last few years have been hard, and specifically the last year and a half. And it's been very damaging to mental health. And there's been a lot of narcissism thrown out there, in a way that it seems like it should be okay to be narcissistic. And so I almost feel like this was like prep, you know, finding my footing and finding hiking and the work that I want to do. And there's a lot of other people out there doing very similar work that this is our time. You know what I mean? This is our time to kind of step up and be advocates and lend our ways to support and inspire and to show people, you know, we can be better as a human race, and we have to figure that out. And we have to work together, and, you know, it's not always going to be, you know, rainbows and unicorns. That's the way the world rotates, man. But if we can just make a difference for some, we're doing all right, you know, and that's what it's all about, you know, being an advocate, growing as an advocate, speaking what you speak, not being afraid to speak what you speak, not being afraid to be judged, just coming out and talking about who you really are and why you are the way you are. People will follow, man. People will get on board. And you just got to stay that course, you know, don't let anything stand in your way, especially mountains.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I definitely appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk a little bit on the show. And if there's one thing that you want to leave with my audience, what would that be? Or if that's too broad of a question or too heavy of a question, what's a place that you've visited recently that you would highly recommend to go get a good hike in?
Oh man, well, I just spent
Or you can answer both if you want to answer both. Whatever.
let's see what I can do here. I just recently spent about 5.5 weeks down in Big Bend National Park in West Texas. That's a special place like no other. You really truly can feel the history of our country, and you can feel the spirit all around you of Native Americans. That place is just incredible. It's almost prehistoric in a sense. So it's not the easiest place to get to for sure, but if you're willing to rent a car from El Paso or Dallas, it's absolutely worth the ride. There are incredible towns around the park that are just really great people, really cool people. It's not always just about the places that I get to hike and see and the beauty, but it's about the people that I get to meet along the way, regardless of our differences. You'd be surprised how many people are out there just wanting to do good and feel good and bring something to the table that's right. I learned a lot of that in West Texas because we weren't the same. I'm a guy from the Northeast, Cambridge, Massachusetts. That's far away from Marathon or Marfa, Texas. So when I say hike the good hike, yes, certainly get out, walk, see the lands if you can do that, the beauty of the United States, but meet the people. Because connection is just as important, in that you can learn a lot from folks for sure. So don't be so closed-minded. That's one of the things that I really appreciate about what I've been able to see while I have been hiking is being able to talk to people who I probably would never have talked to before hiking, that I probably would have judged right off the bat from the way they looked or the way they acted. But instead now I don't do that. I kind of say to myself, give everybody a chance. Doesn't mean everybody's going to be right. You may still walk away, but there's a lot of good people out here, man. So in that sense, man, get out there and hike the good hike, but be open to everything that you're going to experience while you're doing so.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I really admire that, and that's a good philosophy to have. It's kind of what this show's about. I'm looking to introduce myself to folks who I would not have before, and learn from their experiences. And nature's the common theme, the common denominator between everybody on this platform. But there's a lot about life that we can learn from one another, with nature as that little common denominator, and so that's what my goal is just to get connected with different folks, learn about things that I don't really know about, and really find a way to bridge that gap and make connections, and it's all about just getting to know one another with a common love for the outdoors. So
yeah, man,
that's where we're at. So
well, keep it up, brother. You know what I mean? Because we definitely need more people like you. So keep those conversations going, and like I said, man, folks like us will rise above to the cream. We'll be the cream at the top there, and we're needed. So good job, man. Keep it rolling.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast app, be sure to hit that subscribe button and leave me a nice review there. I greatly appreciate that. If you're watching this on YouTube, also hit that subscribe button and turn on those alerts. Drop me a comment and let me know what you think of the show. Looking for us on social media, you can find us at The Trail Connection on Instagram and Facebook. We share lots of cool photos of nature and some nice deep thoughts about those photos. And be sure to give us a follow, give us a like. Check out what we got going on a daily basis. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. My name is Tim Garland, aka Mitty, and you're listening to the Trail Connection Podcast.